Thank you so much, Peter, Somua. Thank you. Can we get a round of applause? Yes. And also the people back home or within the offices I do see. Thank you very much for joining this final conference on the ITHACA journey. We will be looking back on the past 4 years. I was there with the very kickoff together with Astrid, Kaag as well, and some other people who followed us along the journey. My name is Rudy van Beurden, and it's my pleasure to host this very afternoon. And we will have a variety of program elements, including wonderful intermezzos by Peter Somua. He's originally from Ghana, and he won the Erasmus Jazz Prize earlier this year, and he will be coming back to play us some more. But first and foremost, a warm welcome for all the people here in the audience being physically attending here at ITHACA. It's a wonderful nature location in the south of the Netherlands, but also many of you joining us within the Zoom call. So please join us by stating what you want to state or ask questions using the chat, and we will make sure they will pop up here so we can deal with them as well. So take care of that. And before we kick it off with these wonderful guests who are sitting here anxiously waiting to get involved, we first have a video message by the regional minister, and she is Elise Lemkes. Here we go.
Van harte welkom bij de sloopbijeenkomst van het Europese project ITHACA. Ik ben Elise Lemkes, gedeputeerde van de provincie Noord-Brabant. Brede welvaart willen wij een sterkere positie geven in ons beleid. Gezondheid en leefbaarheid zijn daar belangrijke componenten van. Sociale innovatie en inclusiviteit willen we een grotere rol laten spelen en steviger verankeren in ons beleid, zodat ook echt iedereen mee kan doen. Het ITHACA-project geeft belangrijke inzichten om dat te kunnen bereiken met elkaar. Ik wil jullie graag een warm welkom heten. Alle projectpartners die meedoen, vertegenwoordigers, afgevaardigden van het Europese Interreg-programma, vertegenwoordigers van de Europese Unie en alle andere geïnteresseerden die meedoen vandaag en meedoen in het project. Een bijzonder welkom aan onze spreker Jutta Treveranus. Zij heeft een enorm inspirerende visie op de transformatie naar actief en gezond oud worden. De afgelopen 5 jaar heeft de provincie Noord-Brabant het Europese ITHACA-project mogen leiden. 9 regio's uit de Europese Unie hebben ervaringen en inzichten op het gebied van slimme gezondheid en zorginnovatie kunnen delen met elkaar. Met als doel om Europeanen gezond en actief ouder te laten worden. Vandaag is het moment om die ervaringen breder te delen met elkaar. En ik ben dan ook erg blij om zoveel deelnemers te mogen begroeten, fysiek en digitaal, om vandaag die ervaringen te mogen delen. Ik wens u een heel inspirerende bijeenkomst toe.
Yes, so the first video message, obviously to look back on the project, on the journey we took, on the transformation and scaling of innovation in health and care. And also the keynote is mentioned, she's waiting online as well, all the way from Canada to join us anytime soon for the keynote. And Caroline Hummels, attached to the University of Technology in Eindhoven, you will also conduct the interview together with me later on, isn't it?
Absolutely, looking forward.
Definitely, me too. But first and foremost, on my other side, right for all the people in the audience, is Astrid Kaag, the project lead from this region, the region of Noord-Brabant. There are 9 in total.
Yeah.
And we were there 4 years ago, back in 2017, kicking off the ITHACA journey.
Yeah, it's true.
What did you do within all these 4 years? Yes, indeed.
No, but it's a little bit crazy because it seems like yesterday, 2017, the kickoff. And on the other hand, it seems like decades ago because so many things happened in between, actually. We visited each other's regions, we organized feedback sessions, we met new stakeholders, we saw amazing innovations, all kind of thing like that. And actually all with the aim to improve the lives of people, that they can live in a healthy and happy way. And also to make sure that our policies transform to support that. And that's really difficult, actually. It looks so easy on paper, but to really do it in practice, it's a big challenge.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I think because you ask what we did in between, of course. But I think the real transformation actually happened in all of us, and not in the last place because of the pandemic, because I think all of us, we suddenly realize how important it is that we have policies that are long-term, and we really experienced ourselves the weakness or the weak points of our health and care system. But I think also we managed, or we experience the power of our social networks, but also we see that our family members sometimes are in danger, or we are worried about them. So I think in all of us, a lot of things happened and made also the urgency of projects like ITHACA so important. So
indeed. Yeah. For all these people here joining us live in the audience and as well in the Zoom call, definitely make sure to know that we are actually recording. So take in mind whatever you put in the chat and how you are being dressed in front of the camera, obviously. But after some years with Corona situations, we are getting quite used to it. And I also saw in preparation of this very afternoon that at least one source is stating that since 2020, somewhat 1 billion people past the age of 60. So the things you're doing with the innovation in health and care for all becomes more and more urgent, I can reckon.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and sometimes I still have the feeling we are a little bit too late. But that's... Well, maybe that's always the feeling that you are too late when you try to innovate. But we still have to keep the trust that what we are doing makes differences, and that we are really going to the right path and doing the right things to improve, to transform.
And I can imagine then it's also a very nice thing that you can strengthen each other, like in this type of collaboration, that you really support each other with carrying on, even though there's still so much work to be done, actually.
And I think that's also really the power of our consortium, that we know each other for already a long time, that we work together, that we know each other's regions quite well, that we know the ups and downs also in the private lives of people that we are working together with. And I think that's a really strong point of what we are doing together.
Definitely. Yeah. So relation-wise, that's also one topic on the agenda today, next to several roundtables, intermezzos, but also some video messages, what we have to offer for you this very afternoon. And one person who's waiting on the other side of the Zoom call is Anna Mihaljevic, if I pronounce it correctly, of the Joint Secretariat. Can you clearly hear us?
Yes, I can hear you very well, actually.
There you are.
I hope you can hear me and see me properly.
As well. Please, take it away, Anna.
Yes, I'm going to share my screen now. You know, this is always a sensitive part of any presentation. You never really know if these things... okay.
Yes.
Hopefully you can see my presentation because I have shared it. Excellent. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. It's my great pleasure to be here with you, even just via screen this time, but unfortunately we're still struggling with the whole post-COVID ins and outs. My name is Anna Mihaljevic. I am the policy officer at the ITHACA Europe Joint Secretariat, responsible for the ITHACA project. And the reason why I'm here with you this afternoon is twofold in a way. On one hand, I'm here to wrap up this very successful and very relevant project, especially seeing how our context has kind of radically changed in the last year and a half. And on the other hand, I'm here also to celebrate some of its achievements. So in the next very few minutes, unfortunately, I'm going to give you a brief overview of some of the facts and figures that we're proud of at the project, at the program level. And I'm also going to say a few words about the future program and how you, on the other side, can also potentially benefit from it. So without further ado, I'll get straight to the presentation. For the introduction, for those who don't know, and I'm assuming that there are not many of those in the room today, ITHACA Europe is an interregional cooperation program, which putting it in simple terms, funds projects that aim at changing their policies through learning from other regions, which is exactly what ITHACA has been doing for quite a few years now. So far, through 4 calls, we have funded 258 projects with an amount of 322 million euro. In those 258 projects, there are over 2,000 partners from 30 countries. Those partners, 25% of them represent managing authorities, which cover almost 90% of Europe's NUTS regions, which makes the program very wide and very present. We are quite proud of our results, so I'm going to put a few figures here without being too boring and too technical. So these are very relevant results from the 1st of September this year. So far, we have identified over 4,000 good practices, most of which are very relevant to be transferred to other regions. The program has financed 115 pilot projects. Our partners have created almost 1,000 action plans. I think by this point it's over 1,000. And even though only 186 projects have only finished phase 1 of the project, the program has already reached all of its targets and surpassed the targets that have been put out in our cooperation program. Why do we do all of this? So what is the impact of interregional cooperation? The impact, actually, as I said at the beginning, is improving policies. So to crunch it in a few numbers, so far, the program has invested 225 million euro in 186 projects, and those 176 projects have already achieved 680 policy changes. And out of those policy changes, around 400 have been impacts on structural fund programs. In financial terms, this means that these policy changes that have been approved and validated so far have already had a 6-fold leverage effect, which means that with those policy changes, the projects and the program has impacted over €1 billion of funds, which means that those policy changes have mobilized over €1 billion of funds to be invested in through different funds, mostly structural funds. Just one side note is that we take these numbers very seriously, and as ITHACA knows very well, all policy changes are checked and validated by the officers. So these numbers are constantly updated, and these ones that you see here are the most relevant numbers. Apart from the project, the second pillar of the program, as you know very well, is the policy learning platform. I won't say much about the platform here, apart from it being what we call the capitalization platform of the program, meaning that the policy learning platform shares the knowledge that we have learned through the projects to a community of almost 20,000 people. So apart from the good practice database, publications, events, and different things that our experts in the policy learning platform do, one of the most visible services that we offer are pre-reviews, which are typically 2-day events in which our experts help regions who have a certain problem in dealing with these problems and offering solutions in cooperation with other regions. So I invite you to check our website, especially the section dedicated to the policy learning platform, to find out about all of the opportunities and good practices that we have there. And now, of course, the elephant in the room in the last year and a half, of course, the COVID-19 crisis, which obviously is very challenging for interregional cooperation, since most of what we do actually relies on human interaction and on learning from each other. But instead of sitting back and observing how things will pan out, we have taken a proactive stance and created a subsection on our website where you can discover many good practices, events, all kinds of tailored support from our policy learning platform experts, which can help you, not just our project partners, but also the bigger community in tackling this crisis. And last but not least, which is also a congratulations to ITHACA, we have published the so-called fifth call, which was a restricted call to already existing projects, which we have awarded additional funds to projects to tackle this crisis. ITHACA was one of the projects which were successful in this application. So once again, congratulations on this. Now, very briefly, you know well that we cover 4 different thematic objectives. ITHACA is in the upper right one, so research and innovation, which covers 25% of our projects. Here on the map, you can see where the bulk of the cooperation and innovation delivery takes place. We have a total of 53 projects in this cooperation area, which is innovation in sectors, and ITHACA is one of the projects that tackles a very relevant section of this, which is health innovation, along with other projects that you can see here, for example, Titan. I will not talk about this. I just wanted to put it on paper so you can see that the results that the project has achieved are quite impressive, even just in terms of achieving policy changes. So far, there have been 8 policy changes, mostly in structural fund programs, where the project has mobilized new funds, modified calls, did all sorts of stuff that I'm assuming that the project partners will talk about more during the event. We just wanted to say a brief congratulations on this success, and we're looking forward to seeing which other kind of rolling successes you will be achieving even post project. The project has had active participation, not just in project events, but outside as well, cooperating with different organizations, networks, even outside the partnership. As a result, other projects have been also started, not directly related to ITHACA, like the Tele-Agile project here. So the project has managed to really use these few years of cooperation to mobilize additional networks, to mobilize additional funds. And now very briefly about the future of the program, because I'm sure not just ITHACA is interested in additional ways of cooperation, but also potentially others who are here with us today. As you know, Interreg Europe program will continue in the new programming period. So here you can see a very brief outline of the timeline we have had so far. What matters here is that we are in the process of finalizing the final documents of the program, which means that the final approval of the partnership program is expected early 2022. In practical terms, that means that in the first semester of 2022, we are expecting new calls to be launched. So hopefully we will be seeing most of you in the new programming period as well. In terms of what will be changing, Interreg Europe remains a pan-European program with a similar overall objective. It will remain a cooperation program with the focus on capacity building and changing policies. However, something to keep in mind is that as you know, half of the policies that were addressed during the current program were structural funds. So in the new programming period, this focus on structural funds will be lightened, which in practical terms means that only one of the funds to be influenced will be structural funds, which gives a broader opportunity for projects to look into other potential policies and to have a broader impact. There will also be more opportunities for learning by doing through pilot actions from the beginning of the project. So this is something that will definitely spike interest from our project based on our experience. And unlike the 4 thematic objectives that we have in the current programming period, there will be a single priority in the program, which is capacity building, which in practical terms means that we will be able to cover a much broader kind of variety of topics, which are currently a bit constrained by the thematic objectives that the current program has. So this is something very exciting, not just for projects, but also for us who are on the other side. So I think I will finish my presentation here. I've said a lot in very few minutes. Hopefully some of this has been inspiring and a bit useful to you. Thank you very much for your attention. I will be here with you until the end of the event. So in case there are any questions popping up, once again, congratulations to ITHACA. We are looking forward to cooperating you for this additional year of post-COVID, and good luck for the rest of the event. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Anna. That was crystal clear. We could see and hear it very nicely. Some big numbers as well, so that's a huge congratulations indeed. And indeed, it will continue. Some big numbers as well on the good practices, and we will have a few within the next upcoming video. But first and foremost, I will also like to thank you, Astrid. You will be joining me anytime soon for the next roundtable. Yep. But first, we will have a look at some of the inspirations, actually with footage from the actual participants. Here we go.
Our task, our job is to guide visitors through the house, to explain all the furnitures who are presented here when the house opened for public. A lot of people are simply not aware of new technologies who make their life more comfortable, who enable or at least improve their independent living, or they are concerned about it. And so it's important to show them and to reduce these barriers. Very times they're astonished that such things are even available. And though they can go to a professional provider and asking, I've seen this in the Lebensphasenhaus, I would like the same or someone similar.
Het zorglandschap rondom ouderen is aan het veranderen. En dat betekent dat onderwijsinstellingen daar ook in mee moeten veranderen. Het Sumo College heeft een manier gevonden om hun studenten hierin op te leiden. En daarmee ook meteen de sociale veerkracht in de buurt te versterken. Mijn naam is Freek en dit is de Veerkrachtvlog. Hilde, fijn dat we hier mogen zijn, dankjewel. Wat is Lokaal Plus precies?
Lokaal Plus is een plek waar we mensen uit de buurt welkom heten, met name senioren uit de buurt. Die laten we samen met studenten dingen ondernemen. En dat kunnen allerlei dingen zijn. Dat kan zijn samen koken. Dat kan zijn ondersteuning bij iPad-gebruik. Dat kan zijn Zumba-les. Echt afhankelijk van wat mensen graag doen en nodig vinden. En wat wij eigenlijk bieden hier is een leeromgeving voor studenten die heel erg praktijkgericht is. En waar zij impact meteen kunnen hebben voor de mensen uit de buurt. Maar de mensen uit de buurt vragen we ook om onze studenten te ondersteunen in het opleiden. Dus ook de mensen uit de buurt hebben een heleboel te vertellen over hun ervaringen. Studenten leren dat mensen verschillend zijn. Dus studenten leren ook hoe ze met alle verschillende mensen om kunnen gaan. En op die manier hebben we een hele krachtige leeromgeving.
There are over 850,000 people in this country living with dementia at the moment, and increasingly more and more people are being cared for by people at home. Days like this are reaching out to people and giving them the necessary tools to go back and successfully do their own reminiscence sessions and trigger memories and conversation and dialogue with the people that they're caring for, and hopefully making them feel a little bit less isolated.
I've noticed there's lots of different age groups here, ethnicities. And the lovely thing is that you're meeting people who are involved with people with dementia already, and they will give you answers from experience to questions you have. It's a great way to learn and to connect with other people too around the same subject.
You just realise there's an awful lot of people like us. They're helping you a little bit, cope with it, that you're not on your own.
It's made me realise that you're just as important as the person with dementia, because you're living with it as well. And you might need time out.
Having worked with people, I see the real difference that very simple things can make, such as object reminiscence or borrowing a suitcase or going for a memory walk around the museum.
What have you got in your memory box? You've got your Everton tickets, you've got a penny on the day we got married, You've got your used to marathons, marathon medals. We talk about it, don't we? So that's good, Peter.
I nearly got it.
You nearly got it right. You come alive, don't you, somehow? You don't have a lot to say, but you do come alive.
Yes, that's already one inspiring video, and we've got some extra ones to follow up on those. Here at the table is Caroline Hummels, who I introduced very briefly before already, but also on the other side of the line, coming to us from Canada, is Professor Jutta Treviranus. Are you there? Can you hear us, Jutta?
Yes.
Excellent. Sweet. It's also very early in the morning, isn't it? Okay, well, we will see how it will pan out, but first and foremost, Caroline, you're here, and you will have a conversation later on with Jutta. You met each other last week in an online call as well. But very briefly about you, because you're attached to the University of Technology, but especially the Department of Industrial Design. Can you tell us a little bit about the things that you're doing within the university?
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is see how design can help to create alternative practices, to create alternative, in the end, even alternative paradigm, where we start from different values, where we have a different perspective maybe on ethics. Also what we saw just now on health-related topics and issues. And we try to see if we can develop new technologies, new socio-technical systems to interact in new ways, or even to correspond in new ways.
Yes,
I would say.
And we will have a look later on together with Jutta whether there will be any similarities or maybe total differences, because we've seen so many different projects internationally, obviously. I think there's one thing we sure can agree on, and that's the Dutch language remains to be a very strange, tricky language now, isn't it? With all the and all the strange sounds. But we do it luckily in English, Jutta. You're connected to the Inclusive Design Research Center via the University of Toronto. And you performed you're about to perform a keynote for all of us. We will be sitting here and we will be able to hear you clearly. And then afterwards, we will have some questions for you, if you're okay with that.
That would be great.
So please introduce yourself shortly and then feel free to take it away. There you go.
Yeah, and so as Rudy said, I'm here from Canada and the Inclusive Design Research Center. And I think we agreed that we want to spend the time that we've been allotted more in conversation rather than monologue. But I would like to, first off, just frame the perspective that I come from. I'm going to try sharing my slides. As someone else earlier said, that is often a tricky time. Okay. And, sorry. I need to go to the first slide. That would help. So I'm hoping you can see what my slide and only a single slide.
Yes, full screen.
Oh, great. Wonderful. So I've titled my brief presentation, and I'm going to try to keep it brief, as Dignity and Belonging in a Digitally Connected World. And as I said, I would like to leave as much time as possible for conversation, because this is the first week of classes, and I've been doing a lot of lecturing. I'm also, I was very pleased to be invited to this conference because in part, I've been experiencing some of the barriers and certainly some of the mind frame that comes as you age, being close to retirement and receiving all those messages saying, have you planned for your retirement? And there's been a few moments of indignity where I felt categorized in such a way that it was a foretelling of what might happen as I age if we don't do something different. And when I spoke earlier to Rudy and Carolyn, I mentioned that I'm currently teaching a course in the program that I run called Unlearning and Questioning. And you might think, well, wait a sec, isn't university about learning rather than unlearning? And so they asked that I talk a little bit about that topic. So I have a class that is beginning a program in inclusive design, and they're going through what I call my 10 acts of unlearning. And all of them have a single theme, which is how we have this mindset, and many of the things we take for granted, that the things that we do unconsciously deny and devalue diversity, and also to our peril ignore complexity and variability. And so what I'd like to do here is to take a questioning view, to re-examine many of the assumptions that we have that we don't even think about consciously. And in the class, I have focused initially, one of the 4 acts of unlearning is the thinkers that from the Industrial Revolution that seem to still permeate and influence much of our thinking. And they were all thinkers that were trying to find answers to how do we bring order out of chaos, how do we tame diversity and complexity, and how do we achieve efficiency. And the first is Quetelet and the invention of the average man, which of course led to the valorizing of conformity and demonizing deviation. And anyone that does quantitative research can see the traces of how we continue to say average, typical, normal. And if you listen to any of the newscasts of the media reporting the various findings regarding COVID at the moment, or all of the data that's out there, we're still reporting on the average man, the average woman, the average person over 75, et cetera, as though we are all made up of averages. And of course, we know that there really is no average, that there isn't even an average or typical us. But of course, this was convenient for the Industrial Revolution of replaceable workers, the military strategy, and replaceable soldiers. And I would say, is this something that should permeate our design at the moment? The next area that we question is social Darwinism, which was actually had nothing to do with Darwin, really. It was Spencer that first talked about survival of the fittest and life as a winner takes all game, zero-sum game, when in fact we know that diversification was the fuel of evolutionary advance. And in that it expanded the evolutionary choices that any species had. And we know that the fittest is in fact not the strongest, not the comfortable or complacent, but the individuals that are prompted to, that adapt and are prompted to resilience. And so very, very topical for this period of time when there were, even in the UK and other places, there was consideration of sacrificing the weak in order for the strong to survive. But a counter argument is that vulnerability and fragility is very important to our survival because it compels us to create a system that will work for us when we are vulnerable. It helps us to survive the next storm. Perfect monocultures won't survive. And social Darwinism, or the notion of survival of the fittest and prioritizing the fittest will leave us without adaptive choices or social safety nets when the next crisis comes. So the last two, and of course I'm not going to go through the 10, but Melville Dewey, and who was the inventor of the Dewey Decimal System and was a worshiper of efficiency, order, and control, who worked on sorting, categorizing, and labeling, but who was a very, very biased person. And the other influences are Pareto, the 80-20 principle. And in fact, it isn't Pareto, it's Richard Koch, who talked about quick wins, to ignore the difficult 20% in our designs. And I've even heard individuals who are working in inclusion talk about the high incidence disability and how we should address that first, and think about the more difficult 20% as a later piece of it, or something to think about after we have dealt with the 80%. So I think what we are doing in the class is trying to recalibrate how we measure, decide, and judge, and how we plan. And in our thinking, we're thinking of technology in Ursula Franklin's definition of technology. Technology involves organization, procedures, symbols, new words, equations, and most of all, a mindset. And isn't that what innovation is about? And isn't that what inclusion and design are about? So one realization, and several of the other speakers earlier, especially Astrid and others, have talked about what's happening to us at the moment. It's difficult to ignore what we're facing right now. And we're in this complex adaptive system in accelerating flux. It's entangled and complexly connected. It's rife with feedback loops. It's viral, and it's not just complicated or amenable to engineering, despite the fact that we frequently want to find a fix or a solution. Any fix or solution is not going to survive the next unexpected change. And most importantly, none of us are safe until all of us are safe. And one of the things I frequently think about in terms of complexity theory is that we seem to be stuck on a local optima. We're hill climbing up to this local optima that isn't going to reach our survival. We're doing the same thing over and over again. We're optimizing the patterns that were successful in the past. And in fact, in the process, we're eroding the slope so that it's more and more difficult for other people to rise to that local optima. And in fact, what we need to do is we need to stop, rethink, and find our way to the global optima. And what that involves is to look around, not continue to do the things that don't work. And it's in fact the people at the bottom of our current local hill that have the largest number of perspectives. They're less invested in the past. And what we need to do is to include their perspectives and diversify and collaborate. So I've been persuaded that it's the outliers and the small minority that are the critical, vital few that Pareto identified in his actual Pareto principle. And this has become more and more clear to me as I look at the data. So over the last at least 40 years, I've been collecting data on what people need. And these are a huge variety of requirements. And when I've been asked to represent it in a quantified fashion or to show the data, the only way that I can plot it is as a multivariate scatter plot. And what I always find with any of these plottings of needs of a population is that there are 80% of the needs that are clustered in the middle, taking up 20% of the space, and 20% of the needs that are scattered over the rest of the periphery of what I call the human starburst. And the needs in the middle are very close together, meaning they're very similar. The needs out at the outer edge are very far apart, meaning that they're highly diverse. And remember, it's diversity and choices that are critical and important. But because of the pattern that we have undergone, whether it's academics, whether it's politicians, whether it's markets, any predictions or findings that we make are highly accurate for the middle, inaccurate as we move away from the middle, and wrong as we get out to that outer edge. And in inclusion and diversity and design for individuals that have currently been marginalized, we're working with people that for whom those standard predictions are wrong. And so similarly, design works in the middle. It's difficult as you move away from the middle, and people that are out at that outer edge can't use most of the designs that all of us take for granted. So this ripples through every part of our life, whether it's products, knowledge, truth, and evidence, where there's very little known about, or very little knowledge created for those individuals that are out at that outer edge. Work is not available, and even democracy means that, which has been reduced to one person, one vote, and majority rules, means that the trivial needs of the majority will often trump the critical needs of the few, especially as our society becomes better off and the majority doesn't have those critical needs. And counter to that, the innovation and the weak signals are out there. If you recall the hill climbing, it's the people at the bottom of the hill, at the edge of the hill, that can detect where the vulnerabilities are and can find the path to the global optima that we need to survive. And if we design for the entire spectrum of requirements, then those of us that become surprised at the pandemic or other crises have room for change and growth. So the big question is what happens to the exceptions to all of our determinations, assumptions, and rules. And one of the distressing things that I found is that AI optimizes, automates, and amplifies the existing patterns. And there's a story that I've told quite a bit that is actually from 2015, which made it so clear to me and where my alarm began. And this is an opportunity I had to test automated vehicles, and the machine learning models that were used to guide those automated vehicles through an intersection, tell them to stop, change direction, or proceed. And I tested them with a capture of a friend of mine who pushes her wheelchair backwards through the intersection. And all of them chose to run her over. They all said, come back, don't worry, these are immature models, they haven't been given enough data. But when I came back to test the models that have been trained on a lot more data, the machine learning engines chose to run her over with even greater confidence. And that persuaded me that one of the things we need to do is, in all of our designs and in all of our thinking and practices, we need to watch out for Cobra effects, the unintended consequences of oversimplistic solutions to complex problems, linear thinking, the rut of monocausality, as we call it, and not considering the complex adaptive system we live in, or ignoring those outliers and small minorities. And I think, and I'm going to very quickly go through this because I would love to discuss some of these things further. The thing I'm worried about at the moment is, even in our response to the pandemic, we seem to be making things worse. We're in this age of acceleration, and rather than stopping and thinking, we think we have to accelerate more, whether it's business acceleration or Jeffrey West's accelerating treadmills, where we step off of one acceleration and move to the next. And there is something that spurs us on, this notion that we need to catch up with technical adaptability. There's the Friedman graph, which shows that technology is accelerating exponentially or adapting exponentially while humans are adapting linearly. But I think we're actually impeding human adaptability with all of the technologies and the recommender sites and the search engine optimization, the popularity bubbles, things like Smart Compose. We're creating a human monoculture, and we're protecting people from people who are different than them. And similarly, I've talked about belonging and dignity and the human connection that we need at the moment. And I think similarly, we're making things worse with technology. We're increasing the connectivity of technology, whether it's IoT, aggregation of data, but we're impeding human connectivity, whether it's through a digital divide, through shallow sense of friendship, device mediated, and the virtual tribes that we're creating. We're creating fragmented means of connection. We expect faster binary feedback. All of these things are causing us to be less connected, and especially the need for speed and brevity. There is a lot that we should be learning about diversity and equilibrium. To reach dynamic equilibrium, which we need diverse stances and cohesion. One of the things I frequently say is the way to survive this is to spread out and hold hands. And then, like in a lifeboat, that's the advice that we're given. And polarization and binary thinking leads to instability and increasingly extreme pendular swings and pendular ruts. So one of the things that we also are learning in my unlearning class is that majority thinking keeps us stuck. So part of your title is scaling, and I want to question scaling, and I want to talk to Carolyn and Rudy about scaling, because I would question whether we need the standard definition of scaling, which usually is formulaic replication, finding a winning formula and replicating that across a number of different areas. I will talk later in our discussion about inclusive design, but my questioning and travels even as far as questioning things like design thinking, where the design squiggle, which is often used in design thinking, talks about iterating to a single winning solution. And one of the ways that we've been rethinking that is to consider it instead a virtuous tornado, where we continuously stretch our designs to encompass more and more requirements. Cost, that planning with the edge, in fact, is less costly and arrives at greater longevity. And I'm going to stop there because I see that Rudy and Carolyn may be prepared to challenge many of the provocations that I've been giving. And it would be great to have a conversation about all of these ideas that I've been throwing at you.
Yeah, quite some, and I think Caroline has hardly any space left on her paper. She's been taking so many notes. First and foremost, I wish I had back in the day a course called Unlearning and Questioning, because this is highly relevant. But I would say, Caroline, it's up to you. Two professors on a live stream. I'm just gonna sit back and learn, I guess.
Enjoy.
Yeah, and enjoy as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, indeed. I think you can't see it, but it's really like I just scribbled so many things. So it's also the question like, what do you want me to provoke you on? But starting with a remark that you made in the beginning, I think and I feel that we're completely on the same page, and we're really trying to kind of pushing in the same directions, also looking at complexity. So I think for me, what I would like to ask and challenge you a bit with is all the roadblocks that I get in my own work, which is also very much going in the same direction. And for me, I'm very inspired by Tim Ingold, who really pushes growth, but also, as you said, complexity and dynamics, and is really focusing on the fact that it's not about that we are things and how things are in the moment, fixed in time. So he's talking, it's not about interacting with others, but it's really about corresponding with other people. And really, as you also state in your work, it's with people and not between people. And what I noticed there, what you were saying about the scaling, etc. And so for me, there are two things that I find very interesting in this is when you come from more a Cartesian perspective, trying to reduce things and to smaller and to control, and you gave all the examples there. I'm still puzzled by the fact why we are using the word inclusive, and also in your graphs, when you have these pointy edges, in a sense, but is there actually an edge? Or is it a continuous system? I mean, in life, in the way that we grow, it doesn't have that much edges. So instead of talking about inclusivity and instead of about saying a model that we have different rounds, etc., and we have an outer and an inner, shouldn't we also represent it in completely different ways as paths where we take together, have a different perspective on time? So that means that people are not outliers. I mean, in a sense, I'm always saying, sorry, I know that my colleagues don't like this, but all professors, they are really weird, because else they wouldn't have come in that position. You have to work hard, you have to do a lot of things. But in a sense, you could say, in a way, everyone is normal and everyone is weird. It just depends on how you look at it. So might we also not have to twitch and rethink all the wording that we use, all the representations that we use towards each other?
Definitely, and I completely agree. And I think the reason I've been using the human starburst to illustrate things is that, of course, there isn't a clear edge. It's this starburst, which is sort of like, and one of the things we talk about is that we're all complex adaptive systems. We're all variable. Any of us could be, depending upon the stance of the public consciousness at the moment, any of us can be weird, and there can be surprising changes. I mean, one of the things that 10 years ago when I started this program, we were pariahs, right? I mean, much of what we were saying was heresy in the academic world, and we were very much, it was fuzzy discussions. It was this soft human stuff that was not of interest, or that was not the greatest priority. But when the pandemic hit, all of a sudden it's relevant, and you see inclusive design everywhere. And I love the fact that you're talking about inclusive. I mean, when we chose inclusive design as the title of our program, or the title of my center back in 93, it didn't have the type, or I mean, it was a new term. It wasn't as that. It was countering in contrast to the what was happening at the moment. But we've had to rethink what people now think of as inclusive, meaning that we're welcoming somebody to an area where they're not at, which is, of course, not the case in our theory or our practice. We are very much about giving agency and self-determination to the individuals that are most impacted by whatever the design is. So it's more that a designing with, as you say, as opposed to ceding place or welcoming or agreeing to let somebody in.
Can I kind of respond to that also in the sense like, again, referring a bit to Morin, also a French philosopher working a lot on complexity. He's very fond of dialogic versus dialectic. And you're situated in Canada. We're in the Netherlands. We're really into poldermodellen. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but we try to kind of get everything into a kind of, I would say, a gray optimum in the middle, which is not optimal for anyone. But if you look at dialogic, what Morin and many others are saying, they're really looking at a balance between duality and unity. So you really try to figure out, yes, there is unity there, but you always have to maintain duality. And Sennett, for instance, is referring that to jazz instead of more a symphonic orchestra. But I'm not into music that much, so I know that musicians really don't like that a comparison always, especially people from more the philosophical of the composing side. But for me, the point is, if you isn't it then in the design field, and I know because I'm in it myself too, and also I think now with ITHACA in policy, that we really have to figure out then in creating new technologies and creating new policies and creating new organizations or adjusting them and adjusting these practices, that we have to look in how to get this dialogic perspective in there, so that it is about duality already in the process, so that our technologies are not so much pushing at this optimum for a small group of people. But have you ideas of how you could push that, for instance?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've done here, well, in addition to what you're saying, there is this, people are enamored, and certainly government funding programs and policies are enamored of this notion of solutions, fixes, and some sort of stasis in terms of we're going to find the winning way to fix this particular problem, and then we can move on. And I've actually stopped using solution or fix as a word in our program. I think you bring up a number of really good points. We are in stasis. We're never in stasis. We're in flux. The system that we're in is always going to change. So one of the frustrations I've had in participating in EU programs is the Gantt charts or PERT charts, the way that things are divided into these packages, and you have to predict 5 years out exactly what you're going to achieve at each month, and if not, then that you have not succeeded in your plan. What we are contesting in many of the funding policymakers is that what we need to, the best way to succeed in a project, to have the greatest impact, is in fact to be able to dynamically determine where we're going. And because our methods means designing with, as you said, we can't predict, or it would be disrespectful to the individuals that we design with to have it all predetermined. I'm not necessarily answering, but there's so much to say with respect to the notions that you've brought out, and yes, I completely agree with you. I think another way of thinking about the duality and the issue of duality and other thoughts regarding that is that we need to, the main challenge of inclusive design is the fact that we are all so diverse. Recognize that there is this huge diversity there, and difference and variability, and at the same time create something where there is a cohesive unit. There is social belonging. The way that we have divvied up, so the reason we talk about Dewey is, especially in terms of age, we divide kids into these grades. We divide in terms of the vaccination, it's everybody over 75, everybody under these. We create these borders and these lines when in fact we're so diverse. So our commitment is to design one size fits one as opposed to one size fits all. So moving from our conception of universal design to a different conception of design, where we're creating a system that is capable of stretching and expanding and changing and adapting, as opposed to creating one solution, whether it's a policy, a service, or a product that is intended to work for the majority.
I could reflect on one last, because I also see the people sitting here having done an ITHACA project. Being online, doing this, and being involved. I will make it short. I have no clue how timing is, but I feel that you want to wrap it up. But I think what would be nice to also figure out and to conclude is not that policy is simply made by policy makers. But I think, and what you're saying by learning and unlearning, I think an interesting point might be to say it's, at least that's what we do in our work. We very much focus not only on change through the things that we designed, but actually about people becoming change. And I think Astrid referred to it in the beginning very much. That is really about that. And I think what I loved in having done some of the workshops at ITHACA, if it is about becoming change and continuously changing, and really in correspondence changing together and then learning and unlearning together, that it means that it's not about changing the system, but it's actually if we all from our own experience change, we are also able to take our learnings and insights into our job. So for me, I'm my job and my job is me and so I can't disconnect anymore. And I think that might be sometimes also interesting more from governance and from policies, that it's not about you go to your work from 9 to 5 and then you focus there, but it's really about how you change as a person and how you can relate that to what you do, be it an engineer designing stuff, be it a designer designing stuff, be it an artist doing certain things, be it a policymaker. So I think what I hear you say, it's also very much about that.
Yeah, my one worry, very quickly slipping this in, is that we are giving up our influence quite quickly in the way that we are using artificial intelligence. So we're optimizing the past and we're handing over many of our decisions to automated systems. So let's make sure that we continue to drive that change and have some influence in that change.
Well, maybe on that, Jutta, and I think I actually do know the question because we spoke each other last week as well, but there's a question in the chat by John, and he's stating, very interesting and thought-provoking presentation. Do you see potential in analyzing big data to meet the needs of smaller groups of people? For instance, where large data sets could enable more robust and effective research into rare diseases. Does this potential benefit fit into your thesis? I do think I do know the answer already.
So I think we need to not only change or address the data gaps, but we also need to rethink the algorithm. And one of the things we're exploring at the moment is bottom-up data, where you collect data about yourself and you also take control of data aggregation. And we're working on a number of algorithms where we've actually inverted the system. One easy way to illustrate that is, many of you have probably seen word clouds, where what grows is the most common word, and that goes to the middle and increases in size. But in fact, what we've done is we've reversed that. So the novel and unique increases in size because to prevent an echo chamber. We've also been looking at reciprocal data collection, where what happens, rather than someone collecting data on you and forming intelligence, making recommendations, we're looking at a community of individuals who are sharing data with the rest of their community, and everybody is giving data, and that is being used in communities where individuals are living together as they're aging. So you can detect, so-and-so is up, so it's time for me to call, or there hasn't been an activity, or whatever is agreed upon reciprocally. I think the issue I have with data collection and the type of surveillance that frequently happens as you age, or the surveillance systems we're creating, is that there is a loss of agency, and there is embedded in the way that we process it this tendency to also look at the average and create a solution or a fix for the average, as opposed to dynamically looking at the specifics and the context at the moment.
I think in that sense you see again that it's moving more to a Cartesian perspective. So it says something about how we look at technology. And I think it's the beauty of you, of the group that I'm leading, of a lot of other people that trying to figure out that technology can also be developed in another way if you start from other values, if you start from other pointers, so that they can also mediate a different way of interacting with the world and corresponding in a different way, you could say, with technology. So yeah, I fully agree with you.
Well, ladies, excellent. Due to the time, unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. There are so many things being said, and I think also a point of a good keynote is that everyone takes his or her own lesson. And we've heard about the human starburst. That's something to think about, but also the definition of inclusive design. What is it actually? Between lines, I heard something like it's a philosophy that embraces how diverse people are. And Stefania is also stating in the chat, and please, people in the Zoom, keep on stating things in the chat because you might have some time later to reflect on it. Stefania is stating, I think of this acceleration and getting back worse from the pandemic is an incredibly good reflection. So already thanks for that input, Jutta. And also very much thanks for being here this early in the morning for you all the way from Canada. We really appreciate. And I hope you will have a very pleasant day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for inviting me, and I hope the rest of the conference goes well, and congratulations on an amazing ITHACA project.
Thank you. Thanks. And Caroline also, a round of applause is in its place, definitely. The audience is applauding for you as well, Jutta, obviously, and the people back home I see on the screen as well. Caroline, thank you very much also for coming over, for asking your question and challenging as well our keynote speaker, Jutta. And for now, we have another intermezzo with a spoken word, and I hope you will join me with watching this. His name is Onias Landveld. He lived in Suriname and also in the Netherlands. He hopped around a little bit, and he's a spoken word artist. And also he's joined by Peter, who we saw in the very, very beginning. And guys, feel free to take it away.
Ithaca. They say you're the most beautiful place in the world because you're at the end of a life-changing journey. But those last few steps before weary salvation, those calloused feet with bruised heels and toes, those knackered knees that carry diminishing weight across pavement, let's pray. Let's hope that they are filled with joy and not with regret. Regret that the life that once was shall never be again. Its footsteps being washed away by the sands of time. If sad, you have misunderstood this universe, its assignment, an important message. You see, to reach Ithaca, you have to cross a border. A life is gone, but a person is born. A person beset with limitless possibilities. Who knows how this new creature will roam? Will it be with majesty and honor, or with pompous stupidity that makes even the smallest of children wonder? Whatever it may be, O traveler, before you cross that border, look back and take a gander. Because you have may walk the walk, and you are approaching that finish line, but the price to enter Ithaca is that you leave all that you have been behind. I used to hate the journey. It seemed so pointless, so monotone. I wanted the prize, no foreplay. I used to be and still am a very impatient person. But my mom, she wanted to teach me patience. So she taught me this. She said, a watched pot never boils. And I never seemed to understand. I've seen pots with food in it, and it was always boiling. So one day, having the idea, moms never lie, I took the biggest pot that I could find, filled it with water, and placed it on the stove. Lit the fire, and I sat down and watched. And watched. And I watched so intently that my little mind just went to sleep. 15 minutes. And when I woke up, a boiling pot. And that's the journey through your Ithaca. If you continue to watch every step that you take, how will you enjoy the journey? It will seem so long, so monotonous, and that's when doubt creeps in. That's when insecurity rears its ugly head. A couple of years from now, hopefully, when I have done all that I needed to do to dispense my wisdom, I hope I will have enjoyed my journey to Ithaca. Thank you.
Onias, Landveld, and Peter Samoa, thank you very much. We will see you back in a bit. Thank you so much. And for now, I don't know which camera you are in, but we will have some next images in a small short video, and then in a few minutes' time, we will be back with some new guests around this very table. See you back in a bit, and maybe if you like in between, stretch those legs, because sitting is not too good for your health either. Here we go.
Et le rallye, je l'ai fait en fait pour me confirmer dans l'idée, est-ce que je suis bien faite pour ce métier? Voilà. Et là, je suis ravie parce que j'ai réussi, avec tous les ateliers, à obtenir mes réponses.
Et tout d'abord, moi je croyais qu'avant le métier d'aide à domicile, c'était un métier spécialement féminin. Mais là, grâce à ce rallye, je sais maintenant que c'est un métier ouvert à tous, c'est un métier ouvert à tout le monde, hommes et femmes.
On a un choix à faire entre structure et domicile. Ça nous a permis de répondre à des questions sur le domicile pour faire notre choix à la fin de notre année. Donc oui, ça nous a permis d'avoir beaucoup de réponses à nos questions. En fait.
Si on ne s'occupe pas de la formation, et si ce rallye n'avait qu'une seule vocation, c'est comment on va former ces nouveaux métiers, ces hommes et ces femmes qui vont travailler dans ce domaine-là. Et je pense que le rallye, de ce point de vue-là, a été vraiment une réalisation parfaite d'un objectif qui était celui de faire rentrer dans cette idée des personnes qui n'étaient pas censées, il y a 2 mois, avoir l'envie de professer ce genre d'activité.
On a tout à gagner dans un rallye comme celui-ci. On n'a rien à perdre. On y gagne en information, on y gagne en expérience, on y gagne en culture, on y gagne en tout.
À la suite de ce rallye, je vais entamer une formation avec le Greta et bien après, je souhaite devenir aide à domicile, tout simplement.
CAPD Live is an intervention offered by a group of professionals represented from both the primary sector and the secondary sector. People afflicted by COPD are offered a rehabilitation program for 6 months, consisting of physical guided training. They are logging into an iPad 3 times a week, and and they are participating in a group-based physical training. In the training, they are able to see the other participants and also the physiotherapist as well.
This telemedicine approach means that we measure vital signs from distance, from home. So the patients get the measurement system at home, make the measurements, and the measurements go then to the hospital or the ambulance where the professional staff, nurses or doctors can look at the results. And that means we can effectively manage the disease, the patient's conditions.
It's really important to see whether this solution is not only accepted by the older people, but also by informal carer who maybe would feel more peace of mind or not. Maybe he or she would be more stressed knowing what the older person does and whether he or she is out of the bed, out of the apartment or not.
Every hospital finds his own solutions, and I think it's not coordinated. We even don't know what other hospitals do on this field. And the other part is you must have a secured funding, so the hospitals get actually paid for the services. I think it's about people. It's about government support.
We have here a very specific, unique microclimate with pure air rich in natrium chloride ions. People can here do the pulmonary rehabilitation. They can train with our physiotherapists, our doctors, nurses. We keep some projects concerning the influence of the subterranean therapy on human's body. They can reduce their symptoms, improve their quality of life, physical endurance, and they feel better.
Yes, and we're back halfway across the program. So when you just tuned in, my name is Rudy and I will be hosting this. And around the table are now at least 3 policymakers and as well my sidekick, Marielle Swinkels. I don't know if it's actually a common thing, but on the Dutch television, we've got many programs having a sidekick. So whenever I forget my lines, there's Marielle, and she can also ask some questions to our lovely guests around the table. And we start here with introducing them first. I will just state your first name, Xavier, coming from Spain. And what is your family name?
Yeah, El Coro Aristizabal. So my name is Xavier El Coro Aristizabal. I work as a project manager in the Basque Foundation for Health Innovation and Research, BioF, in the Basque Country.
Excellent. And next to you is seated Astrid Kaag. We've seen you before from this very region, Noord-Brabant, the south of the Netherlands. How are you going?
Fine. Yeah.
Excellent, yes. Then we go over to the other side, Agneta Widak.
Yes.
If I pronounce this correctly, yet another
it's
region.
It's almost perfect. Yes, I am Agneta Widak. I represent Malopolska region from Poland. I work for Marshall Office. Marshall Office is an office of regional authority. I have a team implementing generally the Interreg projects, so this is our main field.
Excellent, yes. And next to you is seated Marielle Swinkels, also part of the project team of ITHACA, but also an expert on the task force.
Yes.
And you're my sidekick for this very topic.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation. So, I'm from the project management team of the province of Noord-Brabant. And we work together with a lot of experts across this project, with other experts of each region, helping also the policymakers in trying to do the job together in making change and policy changes.
Definitely. In the upcoming 50 minutes, we have about to talk about personal learnings, experiences, but also to celebrate what went really well. And maybe, Agneta, if I can start with you, you discovered it is also to do with a sort of framework, isn't it? That also the structure of the ITHACA project helped you within your region. Can you tell us something about it?
Yes, of course. I must say that I prepared some insights from the ITHACA journey, But the discussion between Caroline and Jutta was so inspiring that I had to revise a little bit.
Oh, really?
The insights, yes. I think what the most important thing was the understanding. The understanding between partners focusing on one project. Because we are so devised and we have to build networking, but networking based on understanding each other. Because before we start learning from each other, we have to know each other. So during the journey, as Astrid said at the very beginning, we get know each other also from our private sides. And we during the time we have learning step by step. So it was so interesting and so helping building the network. So networking, this was the key things what we've learned from the ITHACA and help us to build networking over the other projects.
Definitely, and please feel free to also ask each other. But may I ask you personally, is it common in Poland to also show some personal aspects within your work or within your job? Or?
Not really. Usually in projects we focus on the content,
yes,
on the subjects, and it's important. But we have to also think about the format of networking. We have to care of our relations between partners. Get deeply into how can we network and how can we care of each other, to understand, to say, to speak in the same language, because we know already that representatives of big business sector speaks different language that us as administrations. So we know that, and ITHACA gives me some learnings how to build a platform in which we can just cooperate together closely.
And Agneta, how did you convince the others to contribute, to come together? Because it was quite new, I think.
Yes, it was new, and one tool was the organizing the meetings based on very interactive activities like workshops. That's why I sent you the photo of workshops organized and moderated by Caroline, which was really, really interactive. It was so inspiring that we were trying with Magda to keep this practice also in our next meetings, not only connected with ITHACA, it was other meetings.
Nice to hear.
So it was really, really inspiring and making people being involved at the table.
Xavier, I see you nodding. Is this something that's familiar to you as well?
Yeah. Probably, if I could think for years, the word that can define this ITHACA project will be the cooperation. A cooperation based on relationship. Because in the end, after this workshop, after this network, we are building this confidence relation, based all of them on trust. Because if you are able to build this kind of relationship, you can achieve different or even more complex goals. And it's, as in the picture appears, this is one of our meetings in which we create a think tank group in which we group all the most relevant stakeholders of our region, the Basque Country, to talk using the same languages, establishing common message based on the trust.
Yeah.
The trust on the other, trying to identifying what are the most relevant challenges for our region, using the experience of obtaining from the process of exchanging in the EEPs or in the good practice exchange, obtaining the knowledge in the institution.
And Xavier, did it help that we had these learning meetings between the regions to bring also your stakeholders from your region to another region? Did it help in stimulating them and in the learning?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it was, for us, it was really, really important to have the chance to exchange opinion with other experts from other regions, to get the knowledge of the most advanced solution or smartest solution that are already implemented in the most advanced region, and to try to avoid the most common problem that we can develop if we are trying to solve the same problem. So we can learn each other, and this kind of learning is also really inspiring for our groups or other regions, because it can be the baseline to build all the rest.
To build the
challenges.
rest. So first a soft side and then actually working on the content or on bigger goals.
Yeah.
Astrid, how is it to hear things like this from several parts of Europe?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you point out different levels of engagement. Actually, you talk about the engagement between the partners on European level, but also the engagement and the trust between your local stakeholders. But I think there is also another level of connection and trust that is needed. And maybe that sounds a little bit strange, because I think it's about the trust in yourself and the connection with yourself. Because what I experienced in the ITHACA project is that there was a moment that I see myself fighting against the system to get something done, actually. And then I realized I lose myself because I'm fighting too hard, and I have to turn back to myself, and I can only do it if I feel comfortable in the place that I live, and that I focus more on my scope of influence, actually, and do things over there, and then I have energy again, and then I can fight the system, or I have energy to try to transform small steps in the system again.
And when you talk about the system, then you talk about current existing policy.
Yeah,
this is something you want to improve,
policy,
obviously, but that takes
Yeah.
a lot of energy and a lot
Yeah.
of courage to actually get it done.
Yeah, and then to zoom out again, then again the connection between all the partners is so important, because you feel a kind of embedded in this network, that everybody has this kind of experiences of.
And how did that go? For my view, you had obviously these design workshops, but was there also a WhatsApp group that you could just say, oh, yet again another hurdle in the road?
Well, in our case, the way to engage and to have a common or a regional idea of how to align several stakeholders with different origins. What I could say that governments, research institute, more social approaches, was using the image that you are showing in the screen. It's a concept of the butterflies that flaps their wings over the layer of water, and it represents that in a really complex environment, and you are not able to predict the result. The most important thing is to try to put a new variable, and the new variable is this new way of change. Using this idea, at least in our regions, all the stakeholders understood.
That's a whole new way of thinking.
Yeah, we could work together. Why don't you try it? And let's talk and let's do it, because in the end, the long-term change can be achieved if all together are in the same line, in the same sense.
True. Yeah.
And did it help also that you change context? Because when you are in your own region, things are, you think you know things, and leaving the context and going to another region, which is completely different. Did it help? How was your experience with that? Agneta or Xavier?
Referring to what Astrid said, that I think that many things is really possible when you start thinking about yourself, that you are also a change maker. I felt at the beginning that, I am so small to change anything, especially when we are talking about the policy, regional policy, which is a bigger unity, the territorial unity. But when you start to thinking that you are able to change small things within the scope within the small territory, you start to be more effective, even in the small little steps. So I think that even those little steps are important for other people who watch me, observing, cooperating with me. And in the longer term, it's effective also for policies.
Yeah. So this is something you actually saw within your professional self. You updated those beliefs actually about what's possible.
Exactly.
And other results came eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, nice to hear as well. Because you say something about, I did read a quote about from you, like real systemic change is to be the change yourself, isn't it? So that's again yet the hurdle that we have to cross, the beliefs that we have within ourselves that we are actually capable of actually changing something, even though it's still small in the beginning.
Yeah, and it connects to what Xavier said, that it starts with a small step and then it can become bigger and bigger. So
yeah.
And what's coming from ITHACA also, that the whole process, it takes time.
Yeah.
Our relations, this is what Marielle said at the very beginning, one of the first meetings was that the relations in the network are deeper and deeper during the time, and it takes time. It's not one meeting, it's not a couple phone calls, but this is the cooperation within one project, within another project, after project, before project. It's just the long-term relationships, and those are the basement of ecosystem.
Yeah, so that's actually one takeaway for the audience as well, for the people sitting here live within the studio, but as well other people working on other projects. If you want to build these relations, take in consideration they might take some time. Yeah. Luckily, you all get 1 extra year now, don't you? So that's a good thing. Are there any pieces of advice or tips we can also share with the audience or with the people joining in the Zoom call?
Well, I think that the success in our, talking about our region, the success that we achieved during this ITHACA project was based on trust. When you know that the other is going to the right, when the cooperation is close and you are able to understand what are the main challenges that the stakeholders try to address, and you are able to help and establish a common point of meeting, I would say that a common goal for the future, and how this goal is also integrated with other goals of other stakeholders. I could say that it's easier to align all the people working for the same thing.
Yeah. Can I then
it's
also
always the
assume
trust.
that you personally, as a professional, also have become more believing in that trust in others and being more open about common goals?
Yeah. This is, I think, that it was
something that it brought you.
Yeah, because this was, we are able to trust on the other, we are able to work together.
And got positive feedback. Yeah, sweet. Well, I have a look on the clock, and anytime soon we have to wrap it up already. Time flies when you're having fun. Is there any final words on this matter, the personal learnings, experiences, celebration, Marielle?
Well, I'm just wondering also about, and what I learned a little bit also about, to look around in the different regions and meet also the citizens, because we didn't leave them out, of course. It was really important to talk also with people living in Bilbao and people living in Krakow, and I think somehow we tried to really involve the end users as well, but still need to learn as well on that.
And use other words than end users.
Yeah, because it's not a nice word. Use the citizen as one of the partners, one of the stakeholders, really, who need to be involved, which is actually was in the beginning difficult because they don't find themselves a sort of stakeholder. Astrid, it's
and didn't feel comfortable to step in and join. And that's also again trust. That you have to build trust also amongst other people that are not automatically part of the project or professional related or something like that.
Yeah. Also in line, actually, funny fact is what Jutta touched upon, unlearning what you've known before and also asking questions, I reckon, in all these regions you've been in. Yeah. And then also challenging yourself in new beliefs, self-trust, trustworthiness, and also
we brought also youngsters in the project who were really questioning us. They didn't understand in the beginning
What it
anything
was about.
this project.
Yeah.
So we really had to explain, and which was really learning for us again, learning from other things.
Excellent. Well, you might have noticed, but we've got the spoken word artist standby right now as well. Many, many thanks. Muchas gracias, Xavier. Astrid. I only know dobre noc in Polish, but that's something completely different. That's good night.
Yes, dobranoc.
Dobranoc. Thank you, Agneta and Marielle. Thank you very much as well. And please leave behind me, because then we've got the floor for the men of the artist. Take it away. Thanks.
As I live and breathe. That's what she said to me. As I live and breathe. I asked my grandma, she's 87 years old, are you happy? And she said, as I live and breathe. So I said, well, clearly you're enjoying life. So what's your secret? And she said to me, whatever you take on your journey weighs you down. Literally. You know, you have physical weight, it can weigh you down, or mentally, that can also be a problem. So she told me from a very young age, eat, but eat healthy. I didn't always listen. Laugh, dance, walk, your bones will thank you. Concerning the mental weight, she says, I meditate and I forgive. Because forgiveness is not just for the other person, it's also for you. And I said, that's it? So yeah, I travel light. I live my life the way the word portrays its image. Sketched out encyclopedically, but these days I move beyond its drawn out limits. I travel light. Left my heaviest bags on the train platform. I need to be light on my feet whenever I perform. I let words escape. Never to be hidden behind subtext or political context. I break out of every darkened structure. No absence of color, no gravitation. Consider this a light lecture. Because whenever too much darkness prevails, that's where the twilight of my well-being is portrayed. It comes in the form of a suitcase filled with memories and opinions, and they weigh heavy on me. They pull with the strength of a black hole, its gravity, and it makes sure that everything in my life just slows. So I travel light. And sometimes it is a fight. Because sometimes people look at my figure and they figure I can ask him some weighty questions that weigh heavy on one's conscience, but I refuse to remain in the realm of their secrets. They have a tendency to reduce the space in between heartbeats, so I refuse to let the ground touch my feet. No form of negativity shall find root in me, so I come with stories. Stories about a past, dreaming about a fruitful future. I travel light. That is the only way that I can travel right. Because the darkness in me will not recede without a fight. And when I'm done with giving life, then it's up to you. I've done all that I can do. Whatever you do, do not buckle under its might. My goodness, always travel light. My grandma also told me to always be a lesson. Unfortunately, we're human, so sometimes we're a bad lesson. But a lesson nonetheless. And if we would recognize the power that we have, the influence that we have on other people, good or bad, I think we can make a slightly better world. Ithaca is a perfect world. One that comes from within. It comes to life as an expression. resulting out of years of struggle born into a white light, white lit explosion. But in our search, in our urge to find the perfect world, we sometimes set out on a journey without answers, and essentially a quest without questions. And then our ideality becomes subject to our humanity. Ideal life for him is a comb. Ideal life for me is hair. In a perfect world, I would have her, the one that went away. Because even though she made me so happy, her ideal world was not with me. Ideal in the Netherlands sometimes is white. Ideal in the rest of the world often is white. But ideality is not a color, it's not an average. Ideality based on some kind of human urge or thought, it doesn't exist. It's like a tone without frequency. But that doesn't mean that you can't dream. To have an ideal means to dream, even if it is just about perfect weekends with warm rays of sunshine, a house, a dog, kids, a white picket fence, someone to call mine, or restful rainy days in a world where ego never comes into play. Or imagine this, living in a world where for 3 days in the week it's not unhealthy to just eat cake and pastries. To do what you are made for, that is ideal. That means that even with diminishing returns, our spirits can still heal. Ideality is not a feeling. Ideality is to have purpose. But it is knowing that even though it is perfect, it is still fleeting. We are not made to live an eternity. We're made to live from time to time, encapsulated in the hours between moonlight and sunshine. Work to overcome that adversity. Work to overcome the conflicts that we are served, even though sometimes it is necessary, because how would you know love without missing someone to hold? How would you know what warmth is without experiencing cold? But still, if you want your ideal to become reality, you have to fight. Become that confident, become that rock, that trustworthy person, that leader. If you do that, your idealism will become reality. You will be the perfect idealist, better than this world's best version. And if you do that, then you have ideality. But then, as a person, thank you.
Thank you very much. You will be back one more time and in a bit, and then I would love to ask you some questions as well, if you're up to it. Thank you very much. And for now, we have a new table filled with new faces, because we just spoke with 3 policymakers in the previous round, but now we're actually going to talk about public-private regional partnerships for scaling up innovations. And we just heard the words of the spoken artist. Maybe some of the words are still resonating with you. I have written down to do what you are made for. Well, those are some very big words. I'm curious how you approach these. And ITHACA can be defined in many, many different ways. It's obviously a Greek island somewhere in a nice, very place, but also it's short for innovation in health and care for all. And that's the topic that brought us together here at the table. And today, right now, we're going to talk with Erik Brander. Can you introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, my name is Erik Brander from Region Zealand in Denmark. I work in what we call Department for Innovation and Research, which is a fairly new department. And I'm also the project manager in Region Zealand of the ITHACA component. I also happen to be the project manager of 3 other EU projects, so I've seen EU projects from very different angles.
Yes.
and it's been very useful.
Let's talk about that later on. First and foremost, next to you, Lucie Vaumont.
Yes, exactly. Nice to meet you. I'm Lucie Vaumont from the Région Nouvelle-Aquitaine in France, and I'm a European Department Manager at the Autonome Lab, which will be the future Gérontopole of the Region Nouvelle-Aquitaine.
Thank you. Next to you, yet another part of Europe, Slovenia, is Drago Rudel.
Hi. I'm here in the perspective of ITHACA project as a stakeholder, now not a partner in the project, but I feel quite comfortable here.
Luckily.
My profession is, actually I'm leading a micro research company dealing with telemedicine service. Together with partners in Slovenia, we deliver telemedicine service to patients with heart failure and diabetes. So I've been coming here to the ITHACA meeting frequently, 6 times, I think, or 4 times so far, to share my experience with the telemedicine and also to learn and to get inspired by ITHACA partners.
Yeah. And in the role of being an entrepreneur from this research company, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, as an entrepreneur. Excellent. Thank you. We will talk with all of you, and also a new sidekick, Sandra Evans. You're coming from Germany, I reckon.
Yes, I am. Geographically, the state of Baden-Württemberg. I'm there from the University of Tübingen, where I'm part in the team of the Lebensphasenhaus, which was nicely presented, I think, right at the beginning of this.
In the video.
Exactly, in the videos. So, project manager there of different, also Interact Europe projects. So, looking forward to
have the conversation.
Exactly,
feel free to come up with very, very critical questions for these roundtable members. And then we have, if I reckon, yet another person, John Webb. Can you hear us? You're in the UK on the live stream. I don't know whether you're there.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Definitely, yeah. Welcome. Can you also briefly introduce yourself, please?
I'm John Webb. I work with the innovation team at Liverpool Clinical Commissioning Group. And what that is in England, most of the NHS funding comes down through clinical commissioning groups. And we're the people who purchase all of the NHS services from hospitals, community providers, and so on. So. Excellent. I work for the innovation team alongside the people who commission those services.
Sweet. So make sure you also pop in a question if you like. So definitely join the conversation. And maybe it's a good idea to start off with ladies first, Lucie, because even in the dry run of this program, we encountered some Dutch directness. You know, everything is run down by the minute. But I've written about what ITHACA meant for you in your region is that there was a new framework, or actually a new region, which overcame many difficulties, which were the first, wasn't it? If I can put it like that.
Yes, if you can put it like that, yes, in fact. So in 2014, in France, we experienced a new experiment. That is to say that we were in this regionalization process, which means that as we swept from 22 regions to 13 regions, which means a different way of thinking for us in France, and we changed everything. So, for example, in the days of the old region, there were many stakeholders in the 3 former region of Nouvelle-Aquitaine, and they could not really exchange best practices, they could not really exchange and share their innovative projects. So that was a problem. And thanks to the creation of the big Région Nouvelle-Aquitaine, for example, it allowed all these stakeholders to share together their innovative projects, and also, of course, to allow the scaling up of projects, which is the main point of innovation. So, thanks to this new territorial organization, the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region and so the Regional Council of Nouvelle-Aquitaine, but also the Regional Agency for Health, gave us the possibility to create 2 new structures in order to federate all those stakeholders of the Nouvelle-Aquitaine, so stakeholders, that is to say, users, companies, researchers, professional trainers, and so on, you know. and within this big new region, and so that everybody can scale up the new innovative projects. So those regional structures created were seen as a kind of single contact point, but also a regional coherence point. And those structures were there in order to help the stakeholders. So one structure was created in the theme of health. So the name of the structure is Alice Nouvelle-Aquitaine, which is the health cluster of Nouvelle-Aquitaine. Mm-hmm. And it's emanating from former health clusters, which were smaller than now. And another structure now is the Gérontopole Nouvelle-Aquitaine, which is dealing with active and healthy aging for older people, and which is also trying to make the Nouvelle-Aquitaine a territory of innovation and excellence in terms of active and healthy aging.
So by merging few of these regions into one bigger one, that's a big improvement already for your region.
Exactly, it's a big improvement.
Sweet.
And yeah.
I'm going over to Denmark. I wasn't quite aware that you've got a Zealand as well. We actually also have a Zealand in the Netherlands. Maybe you've once been there at the beaches. Mm. But is this something what's familiar to you as well, that a structure or the bundling of several regions is important for the collaboration as well?
Definitely. I recognize a lot of the issues you mentioned before. But just to put it quickly in perspective, it has to be from my point of view, because I've only been in the organization since 12. Mm-hmm. And only in 2013 did the Region Zealand actually formalize innovation strategy and policy. And it was pretty new, because usually it's part of something else. So it took a long time before it took off, so to speak. But it's a very small region, and we... the industrial base is small. There's only one smaller university. There are none of the 5 biggest towns in our region. So, I mean, the basis for, you may say, the ecosystem is not that big. But anyway, in 2016, we decided to do something before entering the ITHACA project. We created a cooperation, just like yours, in fact, between the 5 regions in Denmark, and at our initiative, our regional initiative, I was the chair of this one, trying to cooperate. We worked on this for scaling and informing and so on for a year and a half, but we didn't receive full backup financially or politically, for that matter. Okay. So we had to wind up eventually. Then we got on board the ITHACA project, which was very inspiring, and we worked on further development of an ecosystem within ourselves, within the same, our own region, bringing all the stakeholders together very many times. But we find it difficult to sustain this sort of organization because, as I said, the coherence between the partners...
That's still a challenge to be working on.
It is, and we're still doing that, in fact. But it's done in different ways because we work more on individual projects, ad hoc projects, rather than having a kind of forum where we meet regularly. Okay. Eventually, there was an organization or association created at the national level called Trial Nation, as a trial, which was in fact very useful for us as well, because it's an initiative funded by the Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Health, and the regions as well, as a one point of entry for cooperating between the 5 regions, between the regions and the private sector, and also private sector from abroad, in fact.
So that's the way it now works.
That's one area of cooperation. Yeah. It turns out to be not that simple, to get these things going.
It doesn't sound so, no.
No, and we hear that everywhere. In fact, we've been listening and inspired by what's happening elsewhere. But there are certain shortcomings in our system that don't facilitate the development of the ecosystem. So we've had to do it different ways. Yeah, in fact, and
it's not yet inclusive design yet. No, maybe it will come. We just move on to the other side of the table because Drago Rudel, you're a director of a company, an entrepreneur. I can imagine all these collaborations could sound like a patchwork of various organizations, but actually my main question to you is, what is the added value of the ITHACA project for companies?
Well, it is a process actually to get or to summarize what actually could be benefits. But for me, attending the meetings here, there are two things that I have to highlight. The first is the importance of networking and collaboration. Yes, that has been presented here by several regions actually. So when I came back home from the first meeting, I thought, well, what is there in our country? Which ecosystem is important for me as a company? And I found one which is called Health Day. And this actually mainly attracts young, innovative companies. My company is 30 years old, so I didn't feel I didn't, but innovative, yes, of course. But I didn't feel the need actually to join young chaps there. So I changed my mind. I joined the ecosystem, and now actually I support the leadership of the ecosystem with my experience. But I benefit also from this. Another ecosystem that exists in Slovenia is a new one, and because Slovenia is entering a phase of digitalization of the whole sector. Among them, there is also health and social care sector. So there is.
And you work on telecare.
Yeah, my specialty is telemedicine. That is a part of telehealth. So it is important for us that now the government established an advisory board with partners from that ecosystem that would inspire actually the government to invest more in the area of health and social care, which was not in the past. So,
but in a nutshell, to see this way of collaboration and the co-workshop style really inspired you to also look around within your own country and seek for such a network.
Well, now you're reminding me on another case, which is the Liverpool City region.
Yeah.
And I got inspired by them because they also provide telemedicine service to long-term to persons with long-term condition, but they use completely different model. So our is that clinicians from hospital actually deliver the telemedicine service. Their model is that paramedics actually deliver the service, but the paramedics appoint then the people who need intervention into the public healthcare sector. So if we want to scale up within the hospital our service, then we need to change to a less demanding human resource system or model. So we need to change the model of our service.
And that's what you found in the Liverpool region.
Yeah.
Sandra, my dear sidekick,
yes.
You've been part of the project as well. You've been to several places. What is the one thing that sprung to your mind if you hear about public-private regional partnerships? So here we hear some gems about organizing, obviously, within the regions, but as well being inspired by other regions. Can you add something to that?
Yeah, well, also I think being inspired by the contribution today from Jutta and the dialogue with Carolyn, it was really quite interesting because, in Europe we are confronted with fragmentation, right? Different cultures, different systems, institutions or what. And there were some really nice examples of how to overcome that fragmentation through centralization or, collaboration, trying to find, other inspiration and how to come together. But just thinking in those terms and trying to unlearn or rethink fragmentation, can it be a productive moment? Can this complexity that's created by this fragmentation, can it be useful? Can it be, kind of a capacity, how to deal with complexity in the innovation process? Is that something that what do you think about that? Or do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah. All right. No, I think it's a very good question. It's quite clear that it's kind of silo thinking, in many of these regions and public systems as well. And besides, at least in our country, it's been very much supply driven, meaning that companies who want to provide services or products, they develop these products and services without necessarily involving all the demand side of it, including the patients, the citizens, the governments, organizations that have to use it, and so on. And of course, academia, you may say, or research and so on. And it's not very often research-based, in fact. So by bringing these partners together in an ecosystem-like environment, that really shows the strength of bringing all the different thoughts together and somehow streamlining and making it clear to everybody that we're in it together. You can't really do it by yourself. You really have to work together, and you not least have to, at least that's an eye-opener in our case, we have to involve the patients, we have to involve the citizens.
True.
They have to be the key partners in
to
this.
be involved. Thank you very much. We try to collaborate with John as well, if you're still there on the other side of the line, John Webb. I read something about bureaucratic hurdles in the UK, but as well that COVID boosted a lot of the remote services. And actually, John, to finish this block off, because we're running late in time, another John is asking in the chat, there is often a lot of time and energy put into restructuring, as we know in the UK, so this other John is also in the UK, and there's a tendency for this to slow down action on the ground. Do you agree that, regardless of the structure, it can be argued that it is the people involved that make the difference? Good people can make an impact, even with a poor structure, whilst an excellent structure may not make a difference if people are not working effectively. What's your opinion about this, John?
I agree. I think I started the ITHACA project being grateful that I hadn't got the same problems as Lucy. I've now got the same problems as Lucy. So in the UK, during COVID, the NHS adopted a command and control structure where all the priorities were set centrally and then cascaded down from the regions. So the regions told everybody what to do. Maybe as a result of the fact that worked quite well. So certainly there've been lots of innovation during that time, in particular in my field, which is remote monitoring and support, such as telehealth. There's been an awful lot of progress. They've created centralized purchasing frameworks, they've made central funding available, and an awful lot of change has happened in a short time. However, there is a negative side to that, so it has made health inequalities worse in some cases. But in general, it's achieved an awful lot. So maybe because of that, in England, the NHS have pushed through legislation to actually create what they're calling integrated care systems. So from the 1st of April, Liverpool is merging with 8 other organisations into one very, very large organisation that's going to be responsible for 2.6 million people. So I think that's larger than Slovenia. The idea is that this larger organisation will be able to share innovations across the whole region. It'll be able to force through improvements and improve standards. I think there's also a hope that it will actually encourage systems thinking. So by that, what I mean is that instead of just paying hospitals to do more operations, they will hopefully look at the whole system and maybe invest money to avoid us needing those operations by doing something on prevention. Yeah.
System thinking. I'm curious. I think we just had 2 female professors, and I think they would be allergic to that very term, but that's up to them, actually. Sorry, John, due to the time, we have to finish this off. Thank you very much for participating via the live stream, and as well Eric from Denmark, because we have 5 regions here. Lucy from the region within France, as well Drago, Slovenia, and Sandra from Germany. Thank you so much for participating. There are so many lessons to be learned, and even though this is the final conference, you still get another bonus year. So maybe, John and Lucy, you can still exchange in the upcoming 12 months. And for now, we move on to yet another video with some more impressions of the previous 4 years. Here we go.
I was really interested in a social innovation incubator of Malopolska region, and I really like the way they involve citizens, patients and caregivers and family.
I just came from a workshop for us, the big challenge is the integration of various actors in a highly fragmented system, and to give the citizens a voice that has to be heard by the supply side, that is the health system, which has a strong position in Germany, and often it's about the system and not so much about the people, and we are trying to switch that a little bit. Sometimes it helps maybe on the micropolitic level if someone from outside tells us what some of us already know maybe.
So something that was really interesting for me were the presentations of startup companies that were presenting their products. For sure there is a market potential. However, the thing that was lacking, in my opinion, in that presentations was the expressing by the inventors was the early focus on the group of potential customers. My recommendation during the development of these products would be to get early involvement with the focus group. Essentially, all the features should contain a value proposition for the actual group that you're going to sell this product. And regardless whether it's a business customer or it's an individual customer, the rule applies the same.
We will receive a sample request from our research group. We will release some human samples. They will generate the proteomic data, and they will transfer back this proteomic data to the biobank. When a second group requests the same samples, they will receive the samples and the data that has been generated by the first group. So the second group will have the samples together with the data from the first group and the data they will generate. So they will have 3 data sets. And the second group will also send the data back to the biobank. So a third group will have the data from the first group, from the second group, and the data they will generate. So the thing is that you can start having data from different groups to compare and to do more complex projects, because you will have data from different groups. So it's the way to collaborate in a safe environment.
And we're back for this final stretch with new faces around the table, and this time we will talk about the follow-up of the project and also maybe sharing ideas. The previous one was maybe a little bit fast, and maybe there are still some things to be said about it. Later on that, together with Marielle, yet again back as my sidekick. But first, maybe an introduction round, starting off with Professor Dr. Daniel Boer, also from Germany.
Yeah, there are 2 of us.
Yeah, 2 of us. Well,
even more in Germany.
Also came
yeah,
from
exactly.
the same region.
Absolutely. So I'm also from Baden-Württemberg, also affiliated to the University of Tübingen. But I'm also head of a Steinbeis Transfer Center for Social and Technological Innovation. So as the title points it out, I'm interested in innovation, and this is what brought me to ITHACA.
Excellent. Thanks. Thanks for joining the table. Vishnya. Clearly not. No, sorry. I'm trying my best at the toilet before, but
Yeah, you did very good, but
in a
it's
proper way.
Vesna. Yeah, so Vishna actually means cherry in Slovenian, but some sort of cherry, but yeah, never mind. So it's Vesna Dolničar, yes. Thanks for introducing me. I come from University of Ljubljana, from Faculty of Social Sciences, and within Center for Social Informatics with our colleagues and our research team, we are studying acceptance factors and outcomes of e-care and e-health services usage, among other things.
Yeah.
So, and I'm really happy to be involved in the ITHACA project.
Excellent. So from the same region as Drago, who we've seen before from Slovenia.
Yes, exactly. We are both coming from Ljubljana, and in our case, as John Webb mentioned, our whole country is smaller than Liverpool city area. So yeah, so it's around 2 million of us. So we are considered as a very small nation, like an average region.
But very forestry as well. A lot of nature.
Indeed.
You see a lot of trees here.
Yeah,
I was there a few years ago. A beautiful country, though.
Thank you. Yeah. It is. Yeah. So welcome.
Yeah, cool. Also a beautiful country, obviously, is Italy, and you're from the northeast. Elena Canciani.
Yeah. Hi, thanks for inviting me. I'm very glad to be here. My name is Elena Canciani. I work for the Friuli Venezia Giulia region and for the Department for Employment, Training, Education and Family, and I am the project manager of the ITHACA project. Yeah.
Welcome. And Mariella, back again. How's the program going so far? Because it's very full with content, but also with recognition and with overlap in the experience that people have.
Yeah, I have been really enjoying it so far, personally. I'm not sure how the others are experiencing it. And I'm also proud of everybody to hear what they share and what they learned. And and we had so far wonderful collaborations. And I hope that we can continue working together because it's really fruitful. And I think a lot of learning has happened already. So I'm wondering how to keep on going, because we have an extension. And, well, Daniel, we have been working on a sort of impact-driven way, a sort of social innovation, new economic approach.
Yeah, maybe you also have a concept with that, because in preparation we also asked a few of you to take some images, and you came up with the image of a beehive, if I am correctly.
Yeah.
That's something what resembles the ITHACA collaboration to you.
Yeah, to some extent, absolutely. So first of all, and probably the Joint Secretariat would love to hear that we were busy as bees. So that's a very, very important indicator. No, but also, I mean, we were not just busy, we were productive. And I think the bee symbolizes it pretty well because, so I think the role of us as ITHACA project partners, being also kind of members in that expert transfer panel, transferring good ideas and learnings from ITHACA to our back home, to our regional ecosystems, it's like a bee, you know. So first of all, we were busy, we were listening, going out there, starting the journey to ITHACA, you know, crossing borders. Mm-hmm. But then we returned back home to our ecosystems. That's very important to share the learnings. But then again, and that is probably another important factor, is then connecting again to the ITHACA family back there, which the bees are also doing. So meeting each other on a regular basis, to have the chance to exchange, to meet there, to go abroad, to learn, to speak, to meet people, and to share. So this is what ITHACA is about, and this is what we need, absolutely, what we need to establish in the future as well. And whenever there are occasions to do that, we should take that. And so I'm happy that we've got the possibility to extend that for another year.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And Vishna, whenever you wouldn't be a cherry but a bee, did you also bring back some lessons back to Slovenia? You work on e-health and e-care, and you stated when people have proper e-health or e-care, if that's done correctly, it also can result into a peace of mind. Is that something you actively work on?
Yeah, indeed.
thanks for doing your research. Because indeed, our research and our data clearly show that when we approach the users correctly, putting the users in the center and in the focus of everything when planning, thinking, designing, and innovation, we were able actually to clearly demonstrate and to show that users can be reassured, can get their peace of mind, that there is some relief and reduction of stress and worries, and they can feel empowered and get the sense of control over their lives. And even we managed to show with the data that the quality of their lives have been improved because of the usage of e-care and or e-health services. So it's important, that as we heard in the performance before, that we try to enable users that they are able to travel light or lighter.
Yeah,
so,
only asked, definitely. And as well, Jutta mentioned something, and maybe it's a big open door already, but she was asked at a certain point, have you planned your retirement yet? That was something that she felt a little bit stressed out or maybe indignified about. But what is it, the open door maybe, but what is it that elderly people might be worrying about? What's the opposite of the peace of mind that keeps them?
Yeah, one of the worries that is there is the fear that technology will take over the control, that they are being controlled. Mm-hmm. And so it's really important that the users, and there are different types of users. It's not only older people, but also as care receivers or patients, or chronic patients, but also the informal caregivers and the formal caretakers and the medical staff and so on, or care health practitioners, so that all of these important stakeholders in this provision of services are informed about where the data are stored, who can access the data, who has access to this data on monitoring, and so on. And in this case, they are usually being more willing to be involved in such a
when they
service.
feel secure.
Exactly.
They don't have the feeling that the technology is dominating them.
Exactly. So it's a compromise between being and feeling more secure and independent, and you have to give a little bit of your independence as well for that. Yeah. But you will get help when it is needed. You can feel also more empowered. And also, these new services often give not just more support, but also more freedom, more interaction among people, and it's this that we should strive for.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's good to hear about this interaction, because often you hear that independent living, it sounds so lonely. Like thinking of my own parents, very independent, but I want to be in touch with them and keep in contact, and often they often call me when it's already they are better again, but they don't call me when they are sick. So did you find also data that the technology really can support with intensifying the relationships between people? The interdependency we have. We are social beings, and does the technology support that? Have you find data on that particular part?
Yeah, it can, of course. It's all about how the service is designed and what features are there. So we should never forget about the features that enable better, easier, not just enable, but also stimulate more social interactions among families and outside families within neighborhoods that older people live in. And also there's also another thing which I think is also really important, that we should never forget about the fun part. So it's not the ha-ha fun in most cases, but some sort of stimulus that maybe it's just playing cards with similar people to us, or just exchanging cooking recipes or things like that. So we've been involved also in some other projects, and also we heard some best practices within ITHACA project where this can be very nicely done.
To really have this playfulness and get people on board working with it, yes.
Playfulness, perfect word.
Yeah.
And Elena, did you also experience that in the living lab you're working on? Because do you recognize it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that independence doesn't mean loneliness. So I think that devices or smart health solution as to enable the elderly or the disabled people to participate in community life. So I firmly believe in this thing. I had the opportunity of better understanding the model thanks to the partner Autonom Lab from the region Nouvelle-Aquitaine. They hosted us in November 2019, and they tried to present us all their experiences related to the Living Lab model. It's an open innovation model where we can notice a shift from an innovation made for the end user to an innovation model created with the end users. And this is really, really, really important for me because, and they also explained us the pillars of the Living Lab model, such as responsible and desirable innovation, governance, community, but first of all, participation. And when I use the term participation, I would like to mean a real transfer of power from the government to the citizens in order to work really with them and to develop innovative solutions that really fit with their needs.
Tailor-made.
Yeah, absolutely tailor-made. And that have a real impact on the quality of their lives, because we are a region, so this is
and
our
I also can say,
goal.
because we speak obviously about the bigger topic, active and healthy aging, and if you would ask anyone within Europe, you could have millions of different answers. So maybe things that would work in Germany or in France with the region of Lucy, who we've seen before, doesn't necessarily will work in the northeastern part of Italy. Is that something you can comment on? Because
yes, of course. Every
the
country
situation is different. Also, the family bonding is different than maybe how Dutch people view their family bonding.
Absolutely, absolutely. However, there are common principles, and involvement and engagement of end users and citizens is one of these principles. And we learned a lot through the ITHACA project, but also I was supported by all the partners to develop what I learned during the different EPEs, to develop it in my country. So this is important for me because I work with the region to involve and engage regional stakeholders, and we had our last stakeholder meeting in December 2020, and there we had 40 organizations coming from all the sectors of the quadruple helix, and we started after the visit I had in Nouvelle-Aquitaine. We started working with them, and some of them are also here today with us. Nice. And I think that working with them, we have, as a region, we have the possibility of highlighting the great work they are doing on the field. So
yes,
it's important. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. Marielle, in a moment time, Astrid will be here as well to provide us a little bit more on the follow-ups. But from your perspective and being so involved within the last 4 years with the ITHACA project, what do you hope for the next upcoming 12 months?
I hope that we can go to a next level. We have done a lot of work, but that I think that every time we meet, we tune in in another level again of learning. It's also learning how learning works, you know. And for me, that's also my curiosity, of how we can even offer more space for that together and to each other. And so it's really, in the next year, I'm hopeful that we can find the right constraints somehow to make this more sustainable. Because if the project ends in a 1 year time after the extension, I think it's really important that we keep on doing this, because it's a sort of positive way of changing what we are doing together the last couple of 4 years. And I hope to find really the frame which can be sustained in our own organizations, and that we meet each other. And we learned that going through different contexts, that's really helpful.
Definitely.
And that the variety is so important, and not the homogeneous way of thinking, but the variety in it.
Well,
the
then
richness.
let's ask at least one member, Daniel. Maybe it's a very risky question, but without risk, no gain. What was the region, because you are a busy bee, we know, what was the region you like most to visit?
Oh.
Or maybe in other words, well, everyone is awake again, maybe in other words, who are you willing to be in contact again, busy working on a project or collaboration? Who's in your phone?
You know, the good thing is that I'm confident that I'm in contact with all of them, because at the very end, it's people living in regions. So, and we know each other for such a long time. And I think it adds to that what Marielle just mentioned. I mean, you know, the ITHACA project didn't, occur by accident. So it has a long story. So, for instance, the long-lasting partnership between North Brabant and the state of Baden-Württemberg is there for years. So we know each other for many years. We've got the CORA network, so the Community of Regions for Assisted Living, where we all somehow are involved and where we know each other. So I'm confident that even when this project ends, there will be a new project, and there will always be fruitful collaboration, be it in those kind of Interact projects, be it in other research projects, or is it just, meeting at a conference or get a phone call or an email and say, Daniel, do you have any experiences in Germany with this and that innovation, or with this and that policy, and are you willing to share this with me? And this is what it is about, and this is at the very end what innovation is about. Innovation is more or less that a good idea makes it from one person like Vesna, be it Elena or Marielle, to many others, and I think ITHACA provided the framework that this innovation and that so many good ideas, be it products, be it services, made it from one person, one region, to many other regions and people. And I think this is what all will last far beyond this project.
Excellent set. That was the only true answer you could give. So, test well done, definitely.
Yeah, and also the real listening, I think, listening to our citizens. That it's often when other people are coming to visit your region, you invite also the citizens to tell about their lives, and which is really helpful, and then often in between the visits, we sit in the bus together talking about AI, the artificial intelligence, and how important it is to be engaged together and to stay in contact, and don't forget about the human abilities we have together and the relationships. I think that's also what I remember in the many trips we made together, and talking in between, traveling from one citizen story to another citizen story.
Definitely.
Also, if I may, just one short brief note. I think we managed also to bring lots of other stakeholders. It's not just us, but I think
way more people involved.
Exactly, and those trustful connections are there also after the end of ITHACA projects. I mean, I'm quite sure they will connect among themselves as well.
It's the human starburst, what we've learned earlier today. Excellent. We have to round this one up, so thank you very much, Daniel, Vesna, Elena, and Mariella. Thank you so much. I think I will make a very small resume, and then we have to do a changer with the seats here. So I think the up-close camera will be right there, okay? So we've done many different things, and we kicked it off with the trumpetist, obviously. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much. And there were a keynote by Jutta on inclusive design. Very nice conversation as well with Caroline, challenging her, thinking out of the box on what they thought about it. And on and off, Astrid was here with me, and now she's back for a small little resume because we are nearly done with the conference, the final conference. And yeah, how do you look back to it? How do you feel?
How do I feel? I feel satisfied because I think we had a very fruitful harvest, actually. We are in the harvesting time over here in the farmer's land. So I think it's a fruitful harvest. But in the same time, I can imagine that some of the people who are listening wanted to know more about concrete projects, concrete approaches or examples of stuff like that. So I want to invite them to reach out to us and to ask their questions if they want to know more. And on the other hand, also, if in the coming year they like to participate in our project, if they are not yet participating, you are welcome to join us and to learn with us and show your examples and experiences to us. So that's actually what I want to say.
Excellent. So on that, if you like to leave your information, please drop them in the chat so it will be able to be picked up. Astrid, thank you many thanks for hosting this final conference here at Eigentijd. And now, waiting for the final time, are the two artists, and they are performing one final shot. But maybe, Onias, I can ask you, beautiful spoken words, you actually did find your purpose, didn't you?
Yeah, the funny thing is I studied international economics and finance for a couple of years. I did industrial engineering for a couple of years, and now I'm a poet. My mom is really happy. Yeah, so I changed course.
Yeah.
Changed course.
Well, it's awesome what you do, and you brought Peter with you again.
Yes.
So I would say the floor is all yours, and before we all log out or do whatever, I think a warm, big applause by all of us, first and foremost, for your final spoken words.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching.
In the spirit of thinking about your retirement, I've written a letter that I want to give to my children that I don't have, but hopefully I will. This is the day that I'm too old to die young, but I'm full of life and my body is strong. In this day and age, I'm thinking of you. In the silence of my future, I've made my choices. In the noise of the past, I created tangible voices. They taught me that time will never return, but my soul will live on and it shall be heard in you. Know that birds don't sing to me, they speak. They tell me stories from a far-off place, of Fata Morganas, the intruders of our mental time and space. We've never heard of these places, but yet we yearn for something. Because our doubts are trapped in the confines of a law, seeking to escape as the fulfillment of elusive wishes, because what is in front of us is never enough. This sparse presentation of my life is a result of my own intuition. Take from me. I, sometimes a winner, sometimes the loser in this fight, the ultimate warrior locked in combat with himself. But in the intervals of my breathing, I take the time. As I hover between life and death, when silence briefly falls, then I fill my parchment with mistakes and loose threads. Wrong choices in dark alleys, halls full of paintings of people whose faces have been creased by time and forgotten by many. And I'm using it to teach you. My failures shall be your advantage. My traps shall be your knowledge. And as my days fade, I will smile, because that which has crushed me will under no circumstances be your fate. People will understand this because of you. I have learned. I have given everything. I have no regrets. I have been. Thank you.